Have you ever wondered why some chords seem to flow naturally into others? While some just don't? Like they sound unconvincing or even like they're going the wrong way? It all comes down to two powerful forces, progression and parsimony. In tonality, or music that uses a major or minor key, we have 7 basic chords, or diatonic triads, that we can build from a scale, using each note of the scale as the root. Together, they form a complete harmonic language, each with a unique relationship to the others. The most important chord is the 1 chord, our home base, or our point of rest. The 5 chord is the ultimate point of departure, creating tension that pulls us back home to 1. Tonality is built on this central idea, moving from home to tension and back home again. In fact, entire stretches of music are written using only these 2 chords. So, where do the other 5 chords fit in? That's what this video is all about, and it starts with the word progression. The term chord progression doesn't just mean a series of chords. The pro part of progression means forward, and music is an art form that only moves in one direction, forward in time. Chord combinations that move with this flow are called progressions. Those that push against it are called retrogressions, and they can sound like they're moving backwards in time. But more on that in a minute. The other part of this equation is parsimony, a fancy word that here just means to move as little as possible or to take the shortest path. Musically, this means when we move from one chord to the next, we default to moving as few notes as possible. It's the path of least resistance. So, what does this look like? Progression means we're going to move notes in the chord up to reach the next one, because moving up creates forward momentum. And parsimony means we're going to move the fewest number of notes to do it. Okay, this works in all major and minor keys, but today we're just going to talk about C major. We'll start with the 1 chord, C, E, G. Watch what happens if we just move one note up by step. The G moves up to A, and we keep the C and E. That gives us an A minor chord, A, C, E, which is the 6th chord. We got a new chord just by moving a single note up. That is parsimonious. Sure, you could move all 3 notes down a third to get from C to A minor. But that takes so much more effort. It's clunky. It's not parsimonious. Now let's go back to our C major chord and move 2 notes up by step, G to A and E to F. That gives us F major, FAC, the 4 chord. And of course, we could move all 3 notes up, CEG to DFA. This is the 2 chord. It's the least parsimonious option. These 2 chords share no notes in common, but moving each note up is still the shortest path between them. Each of these movements is small, smooth, and directed upward in the voices. This creates a feeling of forward momentum. Let's take a look at the root movement of each chord connection to see the patterns. From C to A minor, the root moves down a third. From C to F, the root moves down a fifth, which is the same as up a fourth. And from C to D minor, the root moves up a second. These are the 3 chord directions that tonal music favors: down a third, down a fifth or up a fourth, and up a second. The surface level notes are all moving up, but the result is that the roots move in these 3 specific ways. These are progressions. If you need help remembering the direction and the numbers, we're always going to move down an odd number and up an even number. The flip side is that there are 3 other chords that would result in going the wrong way. These are retrogressions, chords whose roots are up a third, up a fifth or down a fourth, or down a second. But what that really means is that these chords will tend to move towards 1 rather than the other way around. This one-way traffic flow helps define the sense of direction in tonal music that works with the flow of time. It creates harmonic momentum and shapes our perceptions of musical direction. Now, some pretty cool things happen when we organize the 7 diatonic chords into 3 diatonic cycles, each using just one type of root movement. Let's start with the cycle of thirds. We'll move down a third to get from one chord to the next. And because chords next to each other in this cycle share 2 notes in common, we only have to move 1 note up to get to the next chord to maintain parsimony. As we cycle through, each voice takes turns stepping up. Since only one voice moves at a time, each chord gently flows into the next one, creating a gradual harmonic shift. Next, the cycle of fifths. We'll move down a fifth or up a fourth between chords, and to maintain parsimony, we'll move 2 notes up at a time. A lot of songs use this full cycle in their progressions, and root movement by a fifth is the most common. It's directional, but not jarring. Last up, the cycle of seconds. As you can probably guess, all 3 notes will step up in this cycle. This creates clear, abrupt harmonic change because neighboring chords have no notes in common. Now, composers usually don't just use a full cycle, but they use the underlying logic as a blueprint. Think of them like modular options. You can mix and match as needed. Here's a progression that uses all 3 types. And here's another. Understanding these cycles helps us to see the natural pathways between chords and the patterns they create. And speaking of that, this is where things are about to get so much cooler. So far, we've looked at 3-note chords, or triads. But what about 7th chords, which have 4 notes? Let's go back to this cycle of thirds, but we're going to use 7th chords instead of triads. Let's start with a C major 7 chord, C, E, G, B. The next chord in the cycle would be A minor 7, A, C, E, G. With 7th chords, we only have to move 1 note to get between these two, but the direction is different. B steps down to A, and C, E, and G all stay in place. For adjacent 7th chords, the most parsimonious voice leading is down, not up like in triads. This is a big deal because in tonal music, the 7ths of chords almost always resolve downward by step. In the cycle of thirds, the 7th of each chord will step down to become the root of the next one, with the 3 other notes staying in place. I'm going to play these examples without the bass note so you can really hear how each voice moves. In the cycle of fifths, 2 notes step down. And in the cycle of seconds, 3 notes step down. Isn't this fascinating? For triads, the voices move up to maintain parsimony. For 7th chords, they move down. This creates a beautiful balance. The surface level melodic motion is reversed, while the underlying forward flow of the chords remains the same. It's one of the elegant symmetries of tonal music. So, if you're keeping track, we have 7 diatonic chords, and whether they're triads or 7th chords, they have 3 other chords that they naturally progress towards. There are a few big exceptions to these rules, and they all have to do with that all-important drive from 1 to 5 and back to 1. The 1 chord gets a free pass. It's home base, it can go anywhere, and any chord can go to it. The 5 chord has a similar pass. It's the ultimate destination, so any chord can move directly to it. But the 3 chord is the oddball. It's too similar to both 1 and 5 to create real forward motion to or from either one. Instead, composers usually move from 1 to 3, since 1 can go anywhere, and from 3, move on to either 4 or 6. These exceptions are part of the system. This right here is business as usual. Chords that progress in these ways work with the flow of time and usually sound natural to us. Now, there is some nuance here, like 2 and 6 rarely go to 1 unless it's inverted, but you'll find examples of all of these in real music. We usually reserve the word retrogression for motions that really disrupt the harmonic flow. The most important of these are 5 to 4, 5 to 2, 2 to 4, and 2 to 6. Again, these aren't forbidden, but they're non-standard connections that usually sound unconvincing, although sometimes they can sound fresh and interesting because we're not used to hearing them. I personally get a feeling of almost nostalgia when I hear certain retrogressions. Composers of the Baroque and Classical eras avoided retrogressions, but that means they were sort of an untapped resource that Romantic and modern composers could explore with fresh ears. Okay, that was a lot. I encourage you to play with these connections and see which ones you prefer. Do progressions feel more natural to you? Do the retrogressions sound weird or kind of cool? What happens when you do an entire cycle in reverse or in a minor key? What happens when you let 7th chords go the wrong way with the 7ths moving up instead of down? This is such a cool harmonic sandbox to play with. Let me know what you think in the comments. The more you understand these underlying forces of progression and parsimony, the more control you have over writing more natural sounding music with smooth connections and a sense of direction. This is where music theory gets useful and can be a source of untapped creativity. See you next time on Dr. Fromm's Music Lab.